In this video, we're going to be going over the way that ThunderPOS is going to be handling the rounding to the nearest nickel setting in the release for January of 2026. We're also going to just kind of discuss that situation in general and how we would suggest handling it up until this feature releases. So I have a test version here that has the new feature in it that we're just going to kind of go through. Some of this may change a little bit, but it should by and large work as shown once released. So as you may be aware, as of earlier in 2025, the US government stopped making pennies, and now it has become a situation where banks are unable to get them, and so stores are running out of pennies. Um, and there hasn't been a lot of government guidance on the best way to handle this. So for the moment, we're giving a couple of options in this release. It is possible that Congress will suggest the way that you are supposed to handle it, but as of now, we would recommend discussing this with like a local bookkeeper or something to see what may best suit your local laws. Unfortunately, it's kind of a confused situation. Um, so right now, up until we're releasing this version after Christmas, so it'll be, probably sometime in early January, we would suggest just handling it outside of the system. The cashier can just not, round to the nearest nickel on their own. In general, it probably will even out. Most customers are very unlikely to get too worked up about it. In the event that you're unable to get pennies, obviously the best way to handle it is while you can still get pennies, to get pennies. Um, but in the release in January, we're going to have a couple of options available depending on how you want to handle it. Now, if you go into the system administration and then settings, assuming I can type in the password here, we will go to system administration and then settings. And then under register options, we'll find the options. So round to nearest nickel. So the default option is going to be do not round, which will behave exactly as it does currently. And then the two new options are round to nearest nickel for cash and round always favoring customer for cash. So in both cases, it's not going to round anything unless the customer is at least using some cash. So the only difference here is round nearest nickel will go to the closest nickel. So if, it would be 2 cents, it would round down. If it would be 3 cents, 3 pennies that would be needed, it would round up. Um, Round always favoring customer means if it's a positive number, for example, that you are owed $2.04 by the customer, for example, it would round it down to $2. But if it's a trade-in or a return, it will actually round it up. So it's always going to go in favor of the customer. So if you round to the nearest nickel, on average, you'll end up about evening out over time. It may not work out that way if you have a lot of prices in common, and so you end up with the same rounding amount all the time, but in general, you would end up closer to zero. Round always favoring the customer does mean that over time you will end up, down some amount of money because it's always going to go in favor of the customer, which means it's never in favor of the store. But for most of our customers, uh, it's a pretty marginal difference we would expect. You're just probably not doing the volume of cash transactions where it's going to matter terribly much which of these you pick, but you do have the option of them. Now, there is not an option that is going to round non-cash payments. So checks, account, gift cards, credit cards, those are all going to go to the penny still. But for cash, it will round it. So I'm going to just show how that's going to work, and then a couple of places where reporting is going to happen on that. And for the moment, we're just going to round to nearest nickel, but just know it's going to look effectively the same. It's just whether it rounds up or down at certain times would be changed. So if we go into the register and then we do a miscellaneous item. I'm going to do it not taxed because then it's just a little easier to control the amount. So we'll do it for $1.03 as an example. And then we go to complete the transaction. You'll notice we have the remaining of $1.03, or the remaining amount of cash, because it's going to get rounded up with the setting we used, of $1.05. So if we hit credit or whatever, it's just going to do the $1.03, and we would be able to cash it out at that point. But if we do cash, instead we do have to do $1.05, and it'll go to 0. And because we have cash in there, it is a remaining of 0. If you're doing a split tender transaction, so let's say we paid, I don't know why you would do this, but let's say you paid 44 cents in credit, then you'll see that it adjusts the remaining amount cash and remaining. And if we actually then put in the cash amount, it will go ahead and round that, and now we end up at 0 at $1.04. So it's the cash portion that gets rounded to the nearest nickel. And so it's made it so in this case that the cash portion is 60 cents. So if we go ahead and cash that out, hit OK there. If we were to print a receipt, I don't have it set up to show, but on the receipt, it will show the customer the rounding amount and then the total paid below the grand total. And then on the sales totals report and also on the daily payment types report, you will see, if we go in there, and we'll just run it for today. I may have some other transactions on here as well, but we'll see a net rounding amount. So yeah, in total, we've rounded such that we've actually rounded up by a penny, which means that the tendered is negative. But so your totals here, in this case, I guess that was the only transaction. So we've got, 60 cents cash and then 44 cents credit and then negative 1 cent for rounding. And similarly, if we go to the daily payment types report, we'll see rounding is added here as a payment type. In the event that you're always favoring the customer, that rounding amount's never going to be negative because it's never going to have gone against the customer. And you will, always end up having taken money in effectively as rounding. Hopefully this will help people out. You are fully free to continue to just do it outside of the system. And, if you're not wanting to put on paper exactly what's going on until you can get guidance from the government, assuming that that comes at some point. But hopefully that's helpful. Once it's released, we'll give an update to everybody, but that is like the options that we're giving to handle it. And hopefully that'll answer some questions that a number of people have had for us.